Now we're going to talk about the nervous system, okay? The nervous system is designed, all nervous systems are designed to sense and make sense, process information. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? Okay, now here's how nervous systems organize. Now what you're about to see is you're about to see a slide. Now look at this slide here. Those are embryonic mouse neurons in a petri dish. And you see that they're crawling around and reaching out and touching each other. Now, this is what happened in all of us when we were in utero. Our developing brain was producing in the ventricles nerve cells very much like that, with the same sort of activity that those are displaying, exactly the same. And they came out of the ventricles and they crawled across another type of nerve cell called a glial cell. That's kind of like the track, the freeway, the goat path. And so everybody has their own architecture, and the architecture is reasonably stable. Now you can see in this, and I'll show you this slide again, you can see in this that there's some patterns that will remain relatively stable as you watch. So that's one aspect, that's one characteristic of a nervous system, is that it's very stable. But it's also dynamic. Notice that there's a lot of movement there. Now, in our brains now, our neurons are not crawling around. They're set in place, okay? But what is happening is when we concentrate, when we feel the emotion of curiosity or fear, anything that causes us to focus, biochemical changes occur, and then the biochemistry gets released into the spaces in between the neurons, and that chemical change, in a sense, calls the neuron to, and it acts down on the genome, and when a gene expresses itself, a protein is made, and then a link is created. And so every time you really focus, what's happening is your brain cells are connecting with each other in new and different ways. Right now, and it is true to say that I am in your head right now, and millions of neurons are linking and unlinking in your brains right now. Now, it's also true that you're in my head. And we're all in this together. This entire network from the world, the body, and the mind is passing energy and information, and it all gets recorded in the brain cells. And the more you think certain things and feel certain things, the more that part of the network gets used, and the more it gets used, the easier it is to have its trigger tripped. Okay, do you get that? All right, so that's just basically learning. Learning is happening. So one more time, it's dynamic and it's very stable. See all these, the dendrites here, they're reaching out, they want to touch each other. Okay, great. So now, another video.
Neuronal precursor cells, taken from an embryonic mouse brain, differentiate in culture and send out long extensions called neurites that could later become dendrites or axons.
Okay, so feeling their way.
These neurites are pulled out of the cell body by growth cones that can crawl independently over the substratum.
The chemicals are doing that.
Occasionally, a growth cone detaches from the substratum and the neurite retracts.
The retraction, if you don't use it, you lose it.
New growth cones can grow from the sides of existing neurites, forming branches.
That's what's happening in us right now. All that branching. The branching is what's going on in us right now. It makes our nervous network in our mind more complex. And you learned in systems dynamics that the more complex a system, the harder it is to change, the more stable it gets. All right? So if there are some patterns in your life that you don't like, what we have to learn how to do is quit feeding those patterns with emotion. And I'll tell you about the emotion primarily that keeps it going. The emotion that keeps it going is on sort of groups of emotions are, I hate it, it's frustrating to me. If you really stew, what you're doing is you're using that emotion that's producing stress chemicals inside of you to reinforce and make more solid a pattern that you don't like. That's our job. Now, our job isn't to heal ourselves, because as you can see, the network is running by itself. Like, do you guys know what your brain cells are doing right now? No idea, right? And it's true. So millions of neurons are linking and unlinking, but we're not doing that. That's the self-making. That's the system making itself, and you can guarantee that that's the way it works. That's the truth of it. Okay? So our job is to not give any energy to anything that we don't want. We got to start withdrawing the energy. And that doesn't mean that you're just going to not have preferences, because lousy things do happen. You'll be lying in bed, but you won't be sleeping, and you would prefer to be sleeping. There will be lots of tension in the air somewhere, and you would prefer that the tension weren't there. But hating not sleeping just makes more not sleeping. Okay, and adding aggressive anger to a situation only makes a tense situation worse, right? We have to learn how to pull back a little bit and tone ourselves down, because otherwise we're just sensitizing our network.